Hi guys, welcome back. Miles here, and today we are reacting to schizophrenic memes. Alright, let's get right into it. In this first one, you see a smiling guy saying, "Schizophrenia has positive symptoms," and then he looks less happy and says, "Positive doesn't mean good." So to explain this really quickly, with schizophrenia you can have positive and negative symptoms. They are termed that way, and that is how they're referred to. Positive symptoms are additional experiences, and negative symptoms are lost experiences. An example of a positive symptom would be hallucinations, which is seeing or hearing things that aren't real. This would be an added symptom that is not necessarily present in most people's daily life. Likewise, an example of a negative symptom would be affective flattening, which is having impaired emotional expression. So it's something that takes away from the normal experience that somebody might have. Both of these things are usually present with schizophrenia, and this meme is just highlighting the fact that even though we call them positive symptoms, that does not mean that they're a good thing. In fact, they often make life much harder. Moving on. I can heavily relate to this one because it says ads, tries to make ads relevant. Then it says also ads, tells me how to treat schizophrenia. And then you've got a guy looking like, what? And then the voices in my head saying, don't listen to them. And yeah, I think this is super relevant because small things like that show up in everyday life actually do have a base in reality. The internet can track what you see and where you go and then relate ads to you. So it's very typical for that to happen. But as a schizophrenic, sometimes you will see that and paranoia just goes from 0 to 100 and suddenly it's the most important thing and everybody's spying on you and whatnot. So again, a really relevant one that I think makes a lot of sense probably to most schizophrenics, but I know definitely to me. Moving on, we have this adorable panda that says, neurotypical person makes a joke about schizophrenia, and the punchline is about DID. And we have already spoken about this on my channel, but schizophrenia and DID are two completely different things. Although unfortunately, they are mistaken for the same thing a lot, and due to lack of information and proper study, a lot of ill-timed jokes are made more concerning DID or MPD as it used to be called, and schizophrenia. Just to re-clarify, schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder, and it involves a detachment from reality as a whole. DID, formerly MPD, involves a fragmented sense of one's identity. So they are both completely different things. Please, please, tell a joke that makes sense. It might be helpful. Spreading misinformation, even if it's funny, makes me sad. I think this next one is actually my personal favorite because it's so true. And up top it says, one day you will turn psychotic again. And then it shows this warrior-looking person with the caption, antipsychotics. And then at the bottom it says, but today is not that day. And this is so true. A lot of the times antipsychotics come to the rescue and they suppress those super psychotic symptoms from becoming an everyday thing. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that most schizophrenics will have times when the antipsychotics work really well, have times when they don't work as well, and have times where they seem not to be working at all. The important part about this is that the condition is one that ebbs and flows. So even if you're on the right antipsychotic and they work, they might only work 80% of the time. And there's still going to be that small margin of time where you do have symptoms. Now, this isn't the case for everybody, but I myself can sort of advocate for this as pertaining to the meme, where antipsychotics do come to the rescue a lot, but there are times when it seems like they take a day off. Moving on, this one says, does everyone at work have it in for me, or am I just the paranoid schizophrenic? I don't know that paranoid schizophrenics would have the presence of mind to always ask this question, maybe if they're on really good medication. When I was first initially diagnosed as a child, I presented with a lot more paranoid features, and that became one of the determining symptoms of my schizophrenia. And at the time, regardless of what was going on, it all linked into my paranoid beliefs. So there was never a time where I looked at my situations subjectively and was like, could it be this or could it be that? It was always, they're out to get me, people want to harm me, everyone's spying on me. So this meme maybe seems a little bit less realistic to me, but I think if you did have the presence of mind, if you were on the right medications and you could actually ask about this distinction, it's a pretty good question to ask yourself. The possibility of everybody at work, and I mean everyone, having it out for you is relatively low. I mean, I don't know, there are some hostile workplaces, but I really hope that you don't work someplace where everyone has it out for you. So if you had the presence of mind to ask this question, it might just point back to your paranoia versus the actuality that like everybody has it out for you. Because I'm just gonna say in your normal life, that shouldn't be a thing. I don't know. If it is, I'm gonna pray for you. Continuing on, we have this one with a smiling guy pointing to his brain. And it says, "Can't be alone when you have schizophrenia." Oh my word, does this hit home? There are times when I was not on the right medication where you would go to the most private spot you could think about. And for me as a kid, that was like one of my closets. And I would shut myself in the closet and I'd turn off all the lights and I would just bury my head in my hands and I'd cover my ears. And that does not make the voices go away. You can be in the most isolated place and still experience auditory hallucinations. So this meme definitely hits home, and I'm sure a lot of people can probably relate that you can try your best, but auditory hallucinations will remain with you even when you are completely alone. This next one is like a series of pictures under the title of Having Schizophrenia. And the first one says, "What society thinks I'm like with my family," and shows like a girl with what I believe to be a chainsaw. Then it says, "Where society thinks I spend most of my days," and shows somebody in a hospital wearing a straitjacket, which, just to ease your mind, they don't use anymore. And then it shows a body with 3 different heads and says, "What society thinks I'm like in general." And that's once again the misconception that DID or MPD and schizophrenia are the same, or I think that's what the photo is trying to relay. Then it says, "What I'm really like with my family," and shows a group of people hugging each other out on the beach. Then it says, "Where I really spend most of my days," and pictures a woman sitting in front of a computer. And then "What I'm really like in general," and shows somebody peacefully sitting beside a lake, I think, just kind of relaxing. And I love that this meme is trying to kind of like fight the stereotypes, but I don't know that the equivalents are all that realistic. I definitely don't wield a chainsaw like a maniac, but I have used weapons in the past against myself. I definitely don't spend all of my days in the hospital, but there have been times when that has been my residence for short periods. As for the misconception stated after this, that's completely true, so you got that right. When it comes to what you're like with your family, I think that one can be a little bit hard. I had a very rough relationship with my family and my siblings growing up when I was going through things that I couldn't explain and I couldn't work through. When my schizophrenia was at its worst, I estranged a lot of my family and couldn't spend a lot of unsupervised time with my siblings. So in reality now, on the right medication, yes, I'm very close to and adore and absolutely love my family, but at the time, I don't know that I could say that bottom picture was completely representative of what it was like. As far as the lady sitting in front of the computer, I think that this is somewhat fair. I would like to say I don't spend all of my time in front of the computer, but I do spend a fair bit. And then the bottom one, life in general, I'm gonna have to just disagree, like flat out, because while there are calm or chill moments, like that is not the majority of the time. You will have ups, you will have downs, you will have shifts in symptoms, you will have positive symptoms or negative symptoms, time when medication works, times when medication doesn't. It can be a little bit of a roller coaster. So again, I like that this meme is trying to kind of fight certain stigma, but you still have to be realistic in doing so. This one is super funny because it said, "Started new antipsychotic," and you see a kid, holding up that fist like, "I did it." And then on the bottom it says, "No weight gain." And for a lot of sufferers, this is a true challenge where one has to decide, do I need to take this medication to live everyday life? And am I willing to make other personal sacrifices to achieve that? So yes, all in all, finding the right antipsychotic that does not have the added symptom of weight gain is definitely a win, I would say. Our next meme literally just says, "Brace yourself, psychosis is coming." And as somebody who experiences yearly bouts of really bad psychosis, I can say that this is like spot on. I don't know who this guy is, call me uneducated, but he looks like he is ready for war, and a lot of times facing psychosis can be like war. So this one rings totally true. You can sometimes do everything you want to prepare and still be completely blindsided, but either way, most of the time when you're not in psychosis, you are preparing yourself or bracing yourself, as this meme says, for the time when it will affect you again. And it will, eventually, for most of us. Next, we have this meme showing a guy taking off a pair of Walkman headphones, I believe, and it says, me checking to see if someone's actually talking to me or if it's just the voices in my head. I really like this one because I believe it sort of harkens to a time when you are on the right medication and you actually have to check versus being constantly in a state of thinking everything you hear is real. This idea that you have to check to see if someone's actually talking to you or if it's the voices, it relays that there are times when you're still having hallucinations, but there are also times when that's not the case and you assume that it is. And I have done this, I can raise my hand, I have done this myself, where I've heard something and I've thought that can't be real and it is, or I've heard something and I've thought, I wonder if this is real and it isn't. So there are times for both. And this meme kind of happily joins the two together, saying, yeah, that's reality. Though I have to say, on good meds, there are times when these sort of checking opportunities are way, way lessened. This one, I know this well. I am like a super old throwback person, but this is from The Princess Bride. And they have the caption that says, you keep saying the word schizophrenia. I do not think it means what you think it means. And you know what? A lot of the time, this is absolutely true. As we spoke about earlier, schizophrenia and DID are commonly confused with each other incorrectly. So please, before you make a joke or a comment that has anything to do with schizophrenia, maybe look up the definition, just to be safe. This next one is really sarcastic, but I thought I'd add it in here because I pretty heavily relate to this one, and it shows a string of DNA, and it says, I see you're a genius, that's nice, how'd you like some schizophrenia and depression along with it? And I think this is basically just kind of making fun of the fact that a lot of times people who are incredibly creative or really smart often have these life-altering conditions that sort of seem misplaced. I know in my regular life, I have always gotten really good grades. I have always been in gifted programs. I'm a super creative individual. I enjoy making music, media, art, and all those things. Sometimes people see those things and they're like, wow, you're just on top of the world. And the answer to that is, no, I am not. There are times when I can't do any of those things, but a lot of people who seem to succeed in so many ways can actually be either secretly or more publicly affected by severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia or depression or DID or bipolar disorder or any number of mental conditions. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you can be smart, successful, accomplished, or praised for what you do. While for whatever reason it seems like individuals who have a lot of gifts and talents end up with a severe mental illness, this is not always the case, but this meme kind of brings that to light, in that it is a trend and it can be seen across a lot of people who suffer with mental illnesses, so it's a good thing to point out. Trade-offs, people, trade-offs. We can't be perfect. So I had to include this one because this was a meme from when I was younger that I immediately recognized. This girl, she was everywhere. And this one is misguided, but once again, we've spoken about this before. She says, you want to see other people? Due to my schizophrenia, I am other people. And it is that same misrepresentation of DID being in the same wavelength as schizophrenia. But you know what? The funny part about this is she looks like the kind of person, with this face that she's making, to actually conflate the ideas and make a statement like this. Someone who spends a lot of time online but who doesn't actually learn anything from what they see or hear online. They just kind of spout whatever comes to their head. Again, not a personal attack on her. I bet she's a lovely person, but just an observation. Moving on, we have this meme showing a cat walking on two legs, I think. The resolution is really bad, but I couldn't find another that had this text. Anyway, it says, I do this thing called whatever the voices tell me to. And for a lot of people, this is a reality. I know for me, when I was younger, my fan would talk to me and it would tell me things that I was supposed to do. And when you're faced with a hallucination that is demanding you do something, it's very, very hard to ignore or fight against. So it's interesting seeing this cat who would normally walk on all fours, walking on two legs and saying, more or less, the voices told me to do this, so therefore I'm going to do this. I think the message here is that animals like this can't walk on two legs. It's not good for them. It's not healthy. They should be walking on four legs. So even if the voices may tell us to do things that they think are right, that does not necessarily mean that they are right for us or that we should do them, lest we suffer some sort of injury or problem as a result. This one I find really interesting because it shows a guy pointing to an exit sign and the exit door, and it says, "Meet the people who don't want to be around me after learning I have schizophrenia." This one I don't know that I've had personal experience with. In fact, most of the people in my life, when I got my diagnosis and even after that, actually grew closer to me, even though I did everything I could to push them away because they knew my diagnosis. But I know in some cases where stigma is, held in high regard, there can be people that hear about an illness like schizophrenia and either fear that you are dangerous to other people or that you're going to somehow affect their lives, and that's just not the case. I mean, obviously, you will have an effect on anyone's life who is around you. There will be times when your symptoms will make those people's lives harder, but that does not mean that they have to leave your life. In fact, that's normally when you need them most. And if someone learns that you have schizophrenia and no longer wants to hang out with you, with no reason for that other than just the stigma that surrounds the title of the mental illness, then yeah, I guess the door is there. I also would say, though, that this is a really good time to inform people or explain. This may be a scary sounding diagnosis, but this is what it looks like and this is how you can help. That way we don't have to show everybody the door. Hopefully. All right, we are on our last meme, and this is a sad cat meme. I couldn't finish this list without having a sad cat meme. The walking cat did not count because it wasn't sad, at least that I could tell. Anyway, you see a sad cat sitting on a bed, and half of him is dematerializing into nothingness. And the caption says, "I take my schizophrenia pills," and my best friend says, "What have you done?" and starts disappearing. I wish that this one wasn't true for me because I think it might propagate a little bit of a stereotype, but I did, when I was much younger, have people I considered my best friends who did not exist. Now, it wasn't always the fact that I took my medication and then suddenly stopped hearing them. I would take my medication and they would sort of fade to the background, but they never really went away. And because I wasn't on really good medication, they would always sort of be there, so they never really, like I said, went away. There was never a moment of realization where it was like I took my medication, it was like, oh, boom, everything is sunshine and rainbows, and none of the people I consider, to be people, mean or pleasant or not, disappear all of a sudden. That's not really how it works. Now, when you are on good medication, these symptoms should taper off. If you have voices or you have hallucinations that you consider to be close to you for whatever reason, that happened to me as well. That's a way of coping with the situation. And yes, if you're on the right medication, maybe one day they do fade away. But I wouldn't say it's like this really dramatic moment where it's like the medication hits and you watch them fade before your eyes. Like, that's definitely the meme playing this up for comedic effect for sure. But, I can relate to this one. There are voices and hallucinations that I used to see constantly on an everyday basis that I don't see anymore now that I'm on the right medication. So there's that for what it's worth. All right, everybody, congrats on making it to the end of today's list. I sort of tossed this project in here as a filler project while I work on other things, so I hope that it's given you the chance to smile today and maybe learn a little bit about schizophrenia. I think the best kind of learning is done when you are enjoying the process and laughing through things, so I think memes are a really good method of getting the message across. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you all and stay awesome. Bye!